Well, hello. We're back again for another episode of That 90s Baseball Pod. I am your host, Brandon Warren, and you can find me on Twitter at Brandon_WARNE. And across the screen from me, if you're watching on YouTube, Mr. Gregg Olson. Gregg, how you doing? How do I sound? I'm going to ask listeners for some grace because I've been dealing with the cove this week. Starting to feel better. But if I sound a little funny or if I've got the foggy brain, I've got a reason.
Yeah, no, you sound great. I'm glad you're feeling better. Yeah, after last week where we didn't have any of your audio, it was a nice, quiet, Zoom call. So it was pretty good.
Yeah, and we figured, we really liked going with left-handed pitchers, so I think we stuck with another one, and a pretty darn good one too. Went a couple picks after you in the 1988 MLB draft. We are so delighted to welcome former big league lefty Jim Abbott to the program. Jim, thank you.
My pleasure. I'm excited to talk to you guys. A little scared about the questions that might come my way from Ole. He's got some dark secrets in the closet there, but hopefully we can keep it clean.
Wouldn't do that to you, brother. Jim and I go back to 1987, the Pan Am games. He was playing for Michigan. I was playing for Auburn, and got lucky enough to sit next to the man. And with little to no social media and newspapers, about the only thing I knew about him was what Baseball America was talking about. And he came off of the Golden Spikes that year, sitting next to him in a room in Millington, Tennessee. And they had a couple guys that were teammates, and neither one of us did. So kind of looked at each other going, "You want a room?" And and after that, one of my best friends in the game, golf partner out in Southern California. So it's been 25 years of a solid relationship as friends.
Now, I got to be honest, every time I hear players from, like, let's say your era specifically talked about as teammates, I swear they're always listed as roommates. Like, there was an old wrestling episode where like Kevin Green and Bill Goldberg were on WCW, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we were roommates back with the team." Like, I swear everybody gets talked about as roommates. So it always just makes me laugh when people say they were roommates back in those days. Not only because they don't really, I think, have roommates anymore, but it just seemed like those were the guys who gravitated toward each other, and that story always kind of follows them that way.
Well, I mean, you got roommates that you like and you don't like, and everybody has those. But Jim and I hit it off, and man, when you're in a Navy dorm in Western Tennessee, close to Memphis, the only television I think was downstairs in the main room. There wasn't a whole lot to do. You went and practiced, you worked out, you did all your stuff, and you came back and you hung with the boys up in the dorm. So, we got other stories with Jim as a roommate. And
wasn't there a vending machine with beer in it down there too somewhere?
Ooh.
I think some of the guys got involved in that. I don't remember. You and I definitely stayed away, but
no. Only reason we couldn't find the coins needed to get in. But yeah.
So Jim, your U of Michigan influence is obvious even in your Twitter handle, which is at @JAbbottUM. Got to ask you, you think Jim Harbaugh's going anywhere?
I don't know.
I got to ask.
It changes every day, it seems like, but a little worrying that he hasn't seemed to make a decision.
Yeah.
It was such a great year this year. Finally, for them to kind of overcome some of the things that they've been taking a lot of criticism for the past during his tenure, not beating Ohio State, not winning a Big Ten championship, not going to the CFP. So, he checked a lot of boxes, and I know his stock is high, but I hope he stays in Michigan. He's a lot of fun to watch. He brings, I don't care what you think about him, he brings a lot of interest and excitement to whatever program he's involved with.
Yeah, better that he's checking boxes rather than packing boxes. There's no question about that. I saw his brother's getting an extension in the NFL, so we'll see if they renew that. But Michigan, I mean, it's pretty obvious why you chose Michigan. You were from Michigan, but was there ever a thought in your mind of not being a Wolverine?
Not really. I grew up a Michigan fan. I grew up about 45 minutes from Ann Arbor. One of my hometown heroes was a guy named Rick Leach, who played quarterback at Michigan. He was a three-sport all-state player in Flint at a different high school than I went to, but he was just enough older than me to kind of be my hero, and that kind of entrenched my enthusiasm for the university. And I wasn't incredibly a high recruit. I was scouted by some of the Midwest teams, and Michigan was by far the best program that offered me a chance. And as we were talking before, a lot of great players were there. Barry Larkin was there at the time, and Hal Morris and Casey Close, and it was kind of a no-brainer.
Well, and we talked to, who was it, Ole, that said that they were looking at colleges and they're like, well, I'm meeting these guys, but they're not going to be there anymore. So why would I want to go and play where all the great guys have just left? I feel like you going into
that was me talking about Mississippi State.
That's right. That's right.
Like,
I think
they got dudes all over the yard, and they're all going to be gone. So
yeah, I think we were talking to Big Ben that day, Ben McDonald, and you were talking about why you landed where you did and who had recruited you. So in some respects, though, Michigan was losing a guy who, he ended up playing a pretty good shortstop in Barry Larkin, but you played with some pretty good guys there. Hal Morris, Scott Kamenicki. This is the 90s baseball pod. People are going to remember these names, but yeah, some good opportunities for you to play with some pretty great players, but you just missed out on old Barry Larkin.
Yeah, I went down there on a recruiting trip, and I played Connie Mack baseball in high school, and my coach actually caught at Michigan, so that was another connection. And we went down there, and they were hosting a regional, and Barry Larkin was playing, and it was just, he was just so next level. It was, he stood out on the field, and there was a gracefulness about the way he played shortstop and the way he ran the bases. And it was it's still to this day, it was an indelible memory watching Barry Larkin in college.
Yeah, I'm sure. So 35th round pick, or 36, sorry, in 85. We know what the draft is like today, and you end up going in the first round later. First round is different now as it was then. But I mean, in 1985, how do you find out you're taken in a round like that? Because I know in years before, some guys would get a telegram, some guys get a phone call. What was it like back then? And then does your mind even allow you for a second to think, hey, I could be a Blue Jay?
I 36th round. I don't know. Were there 36 rounds in the draft back then? I don't think
it was just you. You were your own round to yourself, a supplemental draft.
I was pretty close with one particular scout, a guy named Don Wilkie, and Don was he became pretty legendary in the scouting business. He was with the Blue Jays at the time, and Pat Gillick. And so he came to a lot of games, and he called me and said that they had drafted me. And I entertained the smallest of thoughts of signing. I flew up to Toronto with the number 1 pick that year was Todd Stottlemyre.
A future guest of the program. Hopefully we're knocking on wood here. We're working on getting him. So good name.
He was great. I flew up there, and they put us at Exhibition Stadium. We each had a locker and hung a Blue Jays jersey up there, and we got to meet the team, and I threw batting practice, and I was this close. I was like, well, that seems like kind of fun, but my mom said, come on home, you're going to go to school, and that it was the best decision I ever made. I needed to go to college, and it allowed me to play at Michigan, and then that what was great about the USA teams that Ole and I played on, and Ben, was that those were amateur teams. There weren't any professionals on those teams, and so it was the best college players from around the country. And that memory that Gregg talked about, going to Millington, Tennessee, and sitting down in that hotel, in that lobby, waiting to see who you were going to room with, and looking around at guys you'd read about in Baseball America and guys you'd seen in the College World Series, and in knowing we were going to go up against Cuba and Japan, and they had older players, and it was going to be a challenge. And, that was not signing with the Blue Jays allowed all those incredible opportunities.
Is playing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, let me ask you, while we were sitting there going through those memories, you went straight, I'm probably jumping my partner here, but you went straight to the big leagues after, an amazing career. What you did in the gold medal game, we'll get into in a minute, but how did you relate Cuba to the very next time you pitched in a game was, in essence, spring training against major leaguers? Where did they rank? Because I obviously got removed from it a little bit early, and I didn't, get to see the next step.
Well, we missed you, Ole. We needed you there when
For the gold medal game, brother. You close that one out yourself.
Well, the World Championships, we needed that closer. But and I think in your experience as well, the USA baseball that time together really was in essence a minor league experience. The travel, the exposure to crowds and playing in different environments, the exposure to media and having to answer questions and playing in Cuba in front of, what was it, 25, 50,000 people. And
yeah, it was 50. Yeah.
Yeah. So your path was quick to the big leagues and my path was quick to the big leagues, but there was a lot of experiences that came along in the USA, baseball program that provided the foundation to be able to do that. It was intimidating to go up against Ricky Henderson in spring training or Jose Canseco, but you had been in an uncomfortable environment before, and playing against Cuba and Omar Linares and all the great players in the world. And so, it was, I wouldn't trade that experience for anything.
I got to run down the path real quick.
No, it's good. It's good.
So we're in Cuba. So we're the first USA team to go to Cuba, and we went in '87 with the Pan Ams, and we were preparing for seeing Cuba in the games. And so we went down there, and it seemed like it was about 3 weeks, but I know it was probably about 10, 12 days. Jim, do you remember the game you started? We went on a road trip for some reason. We had played in Cuba in front of about 50,000 people a couple nights, and then we went on a road trip, and you got that start. And I will never forget, and Victor Mesa dropping a bunt down to you first play of the game, and you coming off the mound and making an unbelievable play. And it was a standing ovation in Cuba. You remember that?
Yeah, the first play. If you remember, Gregg, it's hard really to describe how enthusiastic the country of Cuba is about baseball and how they look at their team as sort of representative of doing things in a way that the rest of the world should do them. And we didn't really understand that at the time. And so there's this passionate, incredible fan base and intimidating team to go play, dressed in red hats, red jerseys, red pants, everything red. And, there was a buildup. We had a 5-game series, and I pitched the 3rd game of that series. I think, did you start the first one, Ole?
I got one of the later starts, like game 4, game 5, something like that, back in Cuba.
Yeah.
I hadn't started a game all year, so it was like, wait, you're having me do what?
Yeah, that's right.
Back to Victor, because they never laid down another bunt on you. That was it. He tried, you thwarted the try, made a great play, and it was nuts seeing a standing ovation, in Cuba on the road in front of a packed house.
Yeah,
it was an amazing moment where I'm sitting on on the bench going, all right, wow, that was something to see.
Yeah, we sort of won them over. We won that game. It was the first game that we went, and we drove the bus back to the hotel, and the fans were following us. And we went from being the big bad Americans to kind of being the underdog. It kind of switched things around a little bit, so it changed the narrative. But yeah, that was a bang bang play at first base. I remember Victor's helmet flew off, and the fans went crazy, and they were kind of booing him on the way into the dugout. And, it was what a crazy atmosphere. So much fun.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's hard to believe that you made the play. But what about? I got to tell you, I was traveling around with my son, looking at some schools, Brett, and went to Raleigh. USA was playing Cuba, and they had an exhibition game at the Bull Durham Stadium, and Paul Seiler, the head of USA Baseball, takes me around and he's like, you got to meet somebody. I was like, okay. And he takes me into the Cuba locker room before the game, like 10 minutes before the game. And I go walking in and I'm like, not comfortable at all. And Victor Mesa was managing the team.
Wow.
And he just looks at me and he goes, Olsen, and starts screaming Olsen. Well, he still speaks no English. And then and all he got out was, where's Abbott? Where's McDonald? Wanting to know. And it was like they followed our careers because they played against us and we were down there. But through the interpreter, it was like, completely followed all three of our careers, as well as some other guys, Tino. But yeah, he said hello.
Well, we played them so much over those 2 years. We actually ended up, establishing a small bond. We didn't get to spend a lot of time together, but boy, they were incredible. They were Omar Linares, the third baseman.
Yeah.
We had great players on our team and guys like Tino and Robin Ventura but Omar Linares was the best player on the field, and he was our age, and he would have no doubt been a star in the major leagues.
Yep, totally agree with that. Totally agree.
Did you guys feel like fish out of water down there? I mean, there's so much of the experience that's well cultivated. I mean, not maybe more so now, but I can't imagine what that had to feel like going down there and doing that. And then does that standing ovation help or hurt that feeling? You'd think it would help, but I mean, at the same time too, it's a pretty raucous, almost like a soccer crowd, I would think.
It was crazy. I think the right term would be we felt like we were under a microscope. When you say, Greg, I mean, we got off the plane and, we went to this hotel, which I think would be considered fancy there. And, we were 20 years old. We were wrestling around, we were fighting, and doing all this crazy stuff. And it always felt like there was a security guard with a gun not too far away, kind of watching, maybe protecting us, but maybe, kind of keeping us in line as well. And you guys, I was born missing my right hand. I played a little bit differently than other people. And that was an intense curiosity when we got to Cuba. I remember coming off the plane and kind of being one of 25 guys but somehow their advanced word had gotten there and the Cuban press rushed up and they took pictures of me holding a suitcase and took pictures of my right hand. And when we got to our first practice, there was, TV cameras and everything. And so there was this real curiosity in Cuba about somebody playing the way I played. I think because it's, those players are groomed at such an early age to be superstars and to be great baseball players. I was told by an interpreter, that a kid like you in Cuba wouldn't be given the chance to play. The idea that you might play on a national team is so foreign to them. And I think that's why they cheer for you so hard. And that's really what that standing ovation was kind of about. There was just, they didn't understand, somebody not growing up, as a 5-star athlete, so to speak.
Can I ask what other adaptations you made for different sports? Because I mean, we all could see what you did as a pitcher, the adaptations to hold the glove and field and everything you did. But let's say you're playing quarterback, you're running the point in basketball or even just a pickup game. What are the adaptations you made to make yourself such a good athlete?
Oh, and a 6 handicap. So I looked you up today.
Yeah, nice.
On Jim.
Eight.
Oh, that's such a big difference.
6.1. I saw it.
Yeah.
Well, we miss you back here, Oli. The games are no less intense. But I held a baseball bat, just kind of with both hands here like that, and I same way I hold a golf club. I do try to incorporate both sides of the body to the best I can. I don't swing one-handed. In football, I just used my right forearm. I got down a little bit lower to take the snap from the center. And honestly, it was, Brandon, the adjustments, the adaptations were very small. And a lot of people, people would write these really flowery articles and do these, it was courageous or, motivational and honestly, a lot of it was exactly what you're talking about, just making the smallest of adjustments, just doing things slightly different and having great coaches and people around me who sort of encouraged that way of thinking. And the rest, it was just, working hard. And so creativity really opens a lot of doors, and that was important for me.
Yeah.
I got to be honest, rooming with you for a summer, just watching it on a daily basis, it just the little adaptations that you say are still just amazing to me. Just watching you play golf, it's like, you're hitting the ball as far as I am. You're obviously way better around the greens than I am, but it says a lot to your athletic ability and your ability, you call them small adjustments, but no.
Well, I was lucky though. I appreciate it, but I was born this way. It wasn't like I had a hand and lost it and had to figure things out again, and like, a lot of great veterans who go away and have to, reconfigure their lives, so to speak. And for me, this is all I ever knew. This is, how I learned to tie my shoes. It's how I learned to button a shirt. And so I can't say who's to know, maybe my way's easier. I don't know. It's just the way golf still seems really hard to me, but I enjoy it, and I love sports. I really wanted to fit in. I wanted to be a part of something growing up, and sports gave me that opportunity. So I had to, if the only way I could do it is to do things differently.
Yeah, well, you're a great athlete who goes to that.
Yeah, for
sure. Got a side story. You want to talk about the ball you threw out of the hotel in Cuba?
Oh man,
I don't remember how it got out there, but what story were we on?
I don't know why we were throwing a baseball at each other in a close hotel room.
I don't know.
To begin with, I don't know why we would have an open window on the 14th floor. There's a whole bunch of things to it that you still kind of look at going, yeah, and then somehow we're throwing the ball at each other, and I duck, and it goes out of a 14th floor window of a hotel in Cuba. So that was about, because you knew we were being watched everywhere we went. We had, if Jim and I went for a walk and, tried to find something different to eat, we had a guy following us, and you could try to go for a little jog or something, and he would go for a jog. It was, you knew it and you recognized it early on. But the idea that a baseball goes flying out of a 14th-story hotel in Cuba, and Jim and I just kind of looked at each other, and it was like, I don't know what to do.
Right.
And I do remember looking as we're laying under the beds, looking at each other, going, we did it now.
Yeah,
we're going to jail.
We are going to jail. We are in a boatload of trouble here.
Have you guys heard the Chuck Knobloch joke about Cuba?
No.
Oh, the joke was that they wanted to send him down to Cuba so he could overthrow Castro. I can't tell you who told me that one. I'll just say he was a big league manager who played with him, and
that's pretty good.
Sworn to secrecy. But yeah, they always joked that he could go down there and overthrow Castro. So that's the only Cuba joke I have for baseball. But yeah, I have to imagine you're thinking, okay, they're gonna find who threw this, and they're gonna send us out of here, or worse.
Yeah, but within 5 minutes, one of the guys that's been following us around knocks on the door, and we're like, Jim and I'm not getting out from under the bed. Like, they're going to have to come out and drag me out of here. I am not answering the door and letting the guys handcuff me right there.
Right.
And finally, after about 10 minutes of knocking, I was like, okay, Uncle, went and opened the door, and the guy just hands me the baseball and walks away. Yeah. And I'm like, okay. First of all, within 5 minutes, they were up at the room, so they knew what window it flew out of.
And the baseball guys having the baseball would probably add up, yeah.
Oh, no, I was fine with that. But I mean, there was 20 of our rooms. It was like, how do you pick ours?
Yeah.
You guys were under surveillance, apparently.
We were 19 years old. I mean, 20 years old at that time, going up against those guys, and it was pretty amazing. I remember getting a night off, and everyone had told you about the Cuban cigars, and you got to have you go to Cuba. I had an uncle who had me bring back a box of Cuban cigars. I thought I was, going to get arrested for contraband or something. And
yeah,
we were walking around, and every corner they have like a cigar stand. And so we bought one, and I took about 4 puffs off that thing and damn near fell over. It's so strong. I don't think I'd ever had a cigar in my life. That was so many great memories of that trip. And it, it wasn't glamorous. We didn't travel like tourists, or we traveled as a group, and the food was okay. I mean, we were pretty happy to get back to the United States at the end of that trip.
When the dog out front of the hotel disappeared and we had meat suddenly downstairs, I was like, I'm eating rice and bread for the rest of this trip.
It was wow.
At that age, are you guys old enough to understand the meaning of going up against guys that age from Cuba? I mean, the gravity of it or the meaningfulness of it? Or are you just so young and upstart and just ready to go that you have to kind of think about it after the fact?
Yeah,
I think I didn't know. I wish I had known a little bit more of the history of communism and of socialism and the influences of what led to the conditions that we witnessed there. Really kind of a throwback to the 50s. The cars and the buildings, and it's like time had stopped, and so that really, for the first time in my life, it may have been the first foreign travel I think I ever did, besides Canada or something. I'd never been to Europe or anything like that. So and it was just such a shock to see life, people living like that, and so I didn't know anything about it. I wish I would have had a better background on that. Fidel Castro came to our first game.
Wow.
Walked on the field, shook all of our hands, and you didn't really know how to take that, that he was doing that, surrounded by guys with machine guns, and it was absolutely incredible.
I don't think being older would have helped much with that either. That's a surreal experience, whether you're 20 or 40.
Right.
Yeah.
So I got myself, my favorite story of that whole thing is we got back, our whole goal that summer was to play in the Pan American Games. And then that was the end of our time together that summer. And we had to finish, I think, in the top 2 or 3 to make the Olympics next year to qualify. So that was, we had some pressure on that team to do that. And Ole had a great summer. And we had a couple other guys Chris Carpenter was incredible. But we got to the Pan American Games in Indianapolis, and I was elected to carry the flag at the opening ceremonies in Indianapolis, right? So we went to the Speedway. There was this huge, enormous crowd in the grandstands, and all the teams paraded out onto the Speedway. And the United States was the last team to go out there. And I was carrying the flag out in front of our delegation. And in the lead up to that, I had to do a press conference. And some people came up to me, some people asked me, they said, hey, if they didn't know anything about me, who I was, what was going on, they just said, Jim, we just read that you pitched in Cuba and you met Fidel Castro a few weeks ago. What could you compare him to Bo Schembechler, your head football coach at Michigan? And I said, and I was young and stupid. And I said, well, they're both kind of intimidating presences. They're both, they're different, of course, but they're both kind of, there's an aura about them, right? So I don't know, it gets in the paper somehow back in Detroit, and I didn't know anything about this, but I finish up the summer baseball wise, come back to Ann Arbor, feeling like I've had this great summer, these great experiences. I walk into the athletic department, and there's the football equipment manager who I'm really close with, and who was one of Bo's best friends. And he looks at me and he goes, what the hell did you do? I said, what do you mean? He goes, you compared Fidel Castro to Bo Schembechler? I said, no. I said, I didn't really mean it that way. And he said, Schembechler is pissed. He goes, he can't. You better hide. Don't come walking through the athletic department anymore. So I avoided the athletic department for months. And in the freezing cold, that was the kind of place I would cut through to go to the baseball field. Finally, I was so cold one day, I just cut through, and here, sure enough, here comes Schembechler down the stairs, and he sees me and he goes, God damn it, Abbott, get over here. And he got about this far from my face. And he just started screaming at me. He goes, what's this Castro bullshit? And he was really mad about it. And so that was the culmination of my Pan American Cuban experience.
That was your rookie media training symposium
Right.
all at once. Don't take the bait.
Exactly right.
Wow.
All right.
Yeah,
I got to give you one. I'm cutting you off again, brother.
No, it's good. It's good. Do it.
Give me, you told me 2 great stories for my book, going from the gold medal game to spring training and you guys getting in a brawl.
Yeah, right.
You want to run through that one for everybody?
Well, my first experience, I made the team out of spring training. I was in opening day. I went from the Olympics to opening day, Anaheim, California, big league jersey on. And I'm, can't wipe the smile off my face, right? I mean, it's just the big leagues and we're playing the White Sox. We started losing the game, but I really still couldn't even get that upset about it. But we had a very veteran team. Doug Rader was our manager, and Bert Blyleven was on that team, and Lance Parrish, Wally Joyner. We brought in a guy named Bob McClure, a lefty pitcher, 17 years.
He's with the Twins, or at least he was just recently as their pitching advisor.
Oh, the greatest guy in the world.
Yeah.
He survived on, he couldn't throw very hard, but he just survived on, being smart and intelligent. Anyway, he gives up a home run to Harold Baines, lefty, supposed to get out a lefty. Gives up another hit. My first game in the major leagues, Bob McClure drills Ivan Calderon in the back.
Oh, man.
Clearly on purpose. Calderon rips off his helmet, runs on the field, fires the helmet at Bob. Bob ducks. And all of a sudden, my first time on a major league field, we're in a bench clearing brawl. And I'm looking around going, what the heck is Rader, our manager's fighting people, and I was still calling him coach.
Oh no!
First person I ran into was Carlton Fisk, the Hall of Fame catcher, and it was just like, you got to be kidding me! What is going on here? And nothing really amounted of it. It wasn't, it was one of those baseball fights that not much happens, but it was a big difference to go from Seoul, Korea, to Anaheim, California, in the major leagues.
Oh, that's funny. I love that story. That was such a classic. All right, Brandon, what do you got? I've been keeping you quiet for so long. You're doing great.
So you play with Casey Close. You're represented by Scott Boras. Was there ever any kind of funny back and forth about that? Because he's now, I think he's still a pretty well-known agent too. But, Boras is pretty good at his job too.
Yeah, Casey wasn't an agent when I decided. He was still or if he was just getting started in Cleveland. Yep. I forget which agency he was with. He was with a big time agency. And Scott was just a little more established, not much, but a little more established than Casey. And I went with Scott, because of the USA Baseball experience. And
sure.
Ole went with Jeff Morad. But Scott had represented some guys who were on our Pan American team. And at that point, his niche was sort of doing well for guys in the draft. I mean, he was really sort of reconfiguring signing bonuses for guys like Andy Bennis and different guys. So, I thought, hey, he's doing a great job for these guys, and maybe that's why. But Casey ended up being an incredible agent and doing extremely well. And that Michigan team that I played on has some incredibly successful people outside of baseball, and I think maybe I should have studied harder than actually than gone to the weight room.
You did okay. So I want to ask you a couple things about your big league debut. First of all, you dueled against a pretty darn good lefty that day, and secondly, I'm just running over the box score. Dante Bichette was playing center field that day. Seriously?
Yeah. Dante, yeah, he was. Dante was a hell of an athlete.
I'm so used to him. I'm used to him like end of the career, Rockies, Reds, right field, just hide your eyes, get him to the plate kind of guy. But seeing him in center field, I'm just thinking, man, that's a blast from the past.
Dante, when he first came up, was a unbelievable athlete, and he moved really well, and ended up having an incredible career. Really, he
Mhm.
played for a long time. I just saw something on Twitter of him talking about hitting, and
I saw that too. Yeah.
all these people saying this is what you should do in terms of hitting, and it's he was kind of young, and to think that he's became such a professional hitter and so smart is really great.
And so Langston, you're up against Mark Langston that day, and he goes
Really?
all 9. Unbelievable.
No, Langston's part of the golf game out in Southern California. And so it's just funny that years later you guys.
Yeah. Well, he's one of my best friends out here, and he does the Angel games now as a broadcaster, but he was with the Mariners. And you remember him, Ole, in high school, we kind of he struck out, he lead the league in strikeouts, and he had that high leg kick, just got everything out of his body. He just, he was a great athlete, but man, he worked hard. And yeah, I didn't last as long in that game as Langer did.
Oh man. Yeah.
12-12 in your first year in the big leagues. I mean, thoroughly impressive. You ended up, I just kind of ran through your numbers. Other than 89, where you throw 180 innings, you were over 200 innings, 90, 91, 92, 93. And then we had the strike short in 94. That's just unbelievable.
Well, nowadays, but if that used to be the standard, if you didn't pitch 200 innings as a starting pitcher, you sort of, the one thing you could control is how many innings you pitched. I mean, in wins and losses, and I had a couple of years where I pitched well and didn't have a great record, but to be a reliable starting pitcher, you pitch 200 innings. Nowadays, not many guys do that anymore. It's not the standard, but sound like an old man back in the day.
Do you ever let yourself think about how different your career would have been? Let's say, even if you sign with the Blue Jays or whatever, but playing in the minors as opposed to playing in college, you obviously took a path that was very rewarding, and you have a lot of pride in it, and justifiably so. But do you ever think about how it would have been different, or what it might have been like to, maybe you play 3 years in the minors with the Blue Jays, and then who knows if you're part of their rotation with, I think, David Wells at that time and Jimmy Key, and they had some pretty good pitching too. I mean, do you let yourself play that what if game at all, and how things would have been different in terms of preparation? I mean, you hit the ground running, like Ole said, averaged 200 innings those first 5 years. But I think the what if game can always be kind of fun too.
I don't, Brandon, to be honest, I don't really think much like that. My career ended sooner than I wanted it to.
Sure.
I was retired in my early 30s, and my last couple of years were a struggle. And I would love to have changed that. I would love to have pitched, longer and later into my 30s. But I wouldn't trade the experiences that I had for anything,
Right.
from the USA experience, to playing for the Angels. I got to play on the West Coast. I got to play on the East Coast with the Yankees, which is just an incredibly different experience.
Yeah.
I played in Chicago, which felt like close to home, played in Milwaukee. I played with a lot of great players. And I don't look at it in terms of, for a while I was disappointed. I'll be honest. I was disappointed at the couple of years after I retired.
Mm-hmm.
But looking back on it now, I wouldn't trade a thing. I won't go to the Hall of Fame, but in terms of breadth of experience, even the lows, when I lost 18 games, when I really struggled, I feel like it's kind of made me who I am, and I try to be proud of that.
So you, like Ole said, you threw 180 plus innings that first year. You've got guys who are up down guys. You've got guys who debut in the middle of the season. You just kind of hit the ground and went. What was your "I belong here" moment?
Good one.
Yeah,
that's a great question, because it. One of my favorite stories. I played the Tigers were my team growing up. The Detroit Tigers.
Sure.
Alan Trammell, Lou Whitaker, Mark Fidrich. All those guys. And Jack Morris was sort of a guy I looked up to, and I had met Jack in college. He came and worked out at Michigan a couple of times when I think there was a lockdown or something. But I was in the outfield in Anaheim my rookie year, and we had batting practice, and Jack was pitching that night. And he was just walking around the outfield in his warm-up jacket. I don't know what he was doing, imagery or something. But I was sitting there shagging balls, and Jack kind of sauntered over and stood next to me, and he said, "So this is like verbatim what he said." He goes, "So you made it, huh, kid?" And I said, "Yeah, it looks like I did." And he goes, "The trick is to stay." And I said, "The trick is to stay." And that is the trick, is to stay. And it feels like, I don't know how you felt, Ole, but it always felt like a fight to stay, to keep that world going. So there were times, yes, when I felt like, 91, I won 18 games. I really felt established, and I felt confident going out to the mound. I think that's when you feel like you belong, not when you feel nervous and scared, but when you can't wait to get out there on the mound and do what you feel like you can do against the best hitters in the world.
So I shared a radio show with Jack for a year here in the Twin Cities. And so I can hear his voice saying exactly what you said. And that resonates with me.
Jack was great.
5th place in Rookie of the Year that year. Do you remember who won that? I'm having trouble remembering who won that one.
Some Connie Thummer from Baltimore, I think. Relied on his junk. I just threw a bunch of curveballs from what I could
guess.
remember.
Yeah, I
beat out Ken Griffey too.
Wonder what he's doing right now. Yeah, we'll have to catch up with him.
All right, brother, we got I got 15 minutes. I don't want to run you too late because I'm sure you get tea time. Knowing you, like I said, Chuck, you've been playing a lot in January. Be totally remiss, and this goes to the whole, you wonder what the big leagues are like. You threw the no-hitter against a great Indians team in '94. The week before, you told me the story, and this goes to Major League Baseball at its finest, the roller coaster ride of the day-to-day. Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, the no-hitter, I think, was probably the highlight of my career, and cool because, a lot of people latched onto it. Do it in Yankee Stadium, pinstripes, and that whole thing adds a little bit of depth to it. But it came against the Indians, really good hitting team: Lofton, Baerga, Bell, Ramirez had just got called up to that team, Tomey, Alomar, up and down the lineup. They were stacked, and I pitched against them in Cleveland. The start before, and that doesn't happen very often, where you start against a team twice in a row, and I got shelled in Cleveland, just got absolutely crushed. I don't think I made it out of the 3rd inning. I don't remember the exact stats, but it was really disappointing. And so I ripped off my jersey and pants and put on running shoes and shorts, and I went running. I left the stadium and kind of got in a little trouble with my manager, Buck Showalter, for leaving. And, so I had to kind of reconfigure myself for the next game. And I 6 days later, because we had an off day, a Saturday day game, Yankee Stadium. I loved pitching day games. I really liked just getting up and playing instead of sitting around all day waiting. And I got there and I said, you know what, I'm going to be a little bit more lighthearted, a little bit easier on myself. Matt Noakes was the catcher that day. I loved throwing to Matty. We were going to throw a few more breaking balls than we did the time before. And the game started, man. I was walking a few guys, and it didn't feel like a perfect game at all. A couple hard hit balls. And I was kind of joking with Kamenicki, one of my best friends, my University of Michigan teammate. He was doing really well, and he had this kind of cocky run when he would run off after he had a good inning. And I was doing that in that game for like the first 4 innings. I would imitate Cammy. If I got out the inning, I'd like jog off like him. And Jimmy Key was on the bench just dying laughing, like, oh my God. And then all of a sudden the 5th inning hits, looked up at the scoreboard, no hit, and everything changed. Like all that lightheartedness, all that fun, teammates start moving away from you. And then, that 9th inning, Carlos Baerga ground ball to Randy Velarde. I'm giving you some 90s names here.
Yes, love it.
Over to Donnie Mattingly, one of my favorite teammates and people ever. And, it was just epic. You just felt like you were on fire, just so excited. The fans, they wouldn't leave, curtain calls, Matty Noakes, it was just an amazing day.
What we've talked about it because it's just once in a lifetime game, and you went through it all 9 innings. You told me Lofton bunted on you in like the 8th?
The 9th.
Ooh.
Yeah, even better.
He was the leadoff hitter in the 9th inning, and it was 4-0, and he bunted, which, was part of Kenny's game. I mean, to be fair, and it was still close. I mean, but I would have hated to lose that no-hitter on a bunt. And he bunted the ball down the third base line. And, we were playing, Boggs was our third. Boggsy was playing back. And it stayed fair. It wouldn't even have been a play. But it trickled foul down the third base line. And I love the Yankee fans, man, because they rained down on him from all over the stadium. They're booing and going crazy and yelling and screaming. They know their game. And Kenny, I've seen the replay. He got a kind of a sheepish little grin, and so I don't know, but ground out to second base. But yeah, it was the 9th inning. And the thing is Kenny Lofton wore me out in my career. He didn't need to bunt. He probably would have done better if he just would have swung away.
Can you take,
man, I love that story.
Can you take me through going back to California after how things went leaving California? You're traded, you had like arbitration coming up and, a few things. Was it weird to go back? And then you ended up signing there as a free agent anyway, so it couldn't have been that weird. Well,
California was home to me. It felt great to go back, actually. I got traded back to them when they were, Timmy Salmon, Garrett Anderson, Jimmy Edmonds. I mean, they were on the cusp of something really special. They were way up in the standings, killing everybody. It was the first year of the wild card.
Yep. Yeah.
And so I got traded to them, and I pitched pretty well for them. But Seattle had traded for Andy Bennis, and they had traded for a couple guys because they were trying to make a run at the wild card. They had basically conceded the division to the Angels, and we had this epic collapse.
I think there's a Jose Cruz Jr. trade. They got like Spoljaric and Timlin or something too.
Yeah, they kept fighting. In a season where they were way back, they probably would have, maybe not made those moves.
Yep.
A little bit like the Braves this year, who didn't give up and could have, kind of thrown in the towel. So that made it exciting, and unfortunately we lost. But California was my home. The people, my wife's from here. A lot of good friends were on that team and ran the team and the organization. So it felt good to be home. I was disappointed that I didn't do better when I came back.
And I mean, I don't want to dwell on it, but what was that 1996 season like? Because you had been through a lot, you'd proven a lot, but that's also you're at the peak level of baseball and things aren't going well. How do you keep yourself going? Because you made 27 appearances, 23 starts that year. It's not often that you get to make that many trips when things are just kind of going sideways.
Yeah, it was brutal. I went 2-18 that year. It was the classic story of when you lose, when you're 1-5 or 1-6, and then 2-10, or you're trying to win 2 or 3 games at a time. You're trying to catch up all at once, and your head just starts spinning. And I just sort of lost what made me. I couldn't transition. I didn't have the fastball that I had earlier in my career. I kind of had to be perfect with location, and that was never who I sort of was. But personally, it was brutal. Marcel Latchman, our manager, was fired that year, and I sort of felt some responsibility for that. But I discovered, success in athletics had covered up a lot in my life for a long time, right? So I was born missing my right hand. I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be on a team. And all of a sudden I was good. I was good at football, and I was good at baseball, and I had success. And all of a sudden these pats on the back and these accolades, brought this sense of self-esteem, that maybe I didn't reconcile some of the other things as well as I should have. And that losing 18 games and failing that publicly and that personally made me kind of think a lot about where my self-esteem was based, and how I thought of myself with my family, how I thought of myself in my community. And so as brutal as it was a wreck. You know, I had to figure some things out, and I can't say that I would look back on that fondly. I wish I'd have went 18-2, but it was what it was.
Yeah, not many guys can claim to have won 18 in the season and lost 18 in another. I think Doug Drabeck around that time was another one. I was looking it up, but I definitely don't want to end it on that. I definitely don't want to end it.
That was God, that was so well put. It really was, because we've all, you know, you get to the major leagues, you're at the top of the world, and we all get kicked, you know. And 96 was one of my worst years. It was just you're doing the same thing. You're looking around the room going, how long am I going to be here? I was. Yeah, and your sense of self-value really takes a huge hit. God, that was, man, what you just said was really deep, and I thoroughly appreciate it, because I know exactly what you went through, and it's just thanks for sharing that. Really,
I do want to ask what it looked like on the other side, because you don't play in 97, but you come back, you have some success with the White Sox and the Brewers, and then that's it. What did the other side look like? What did you learn from that as a player and as a human being, and how you applied it?
You know what? That people aren't really watching that closely. People don't care, right? I mean, I thought when I was 2-18 that I walked into a restaurant in my hometown, it was plastered on my forehead. 2-18, 2-18. You know, that guy sucked, whatever. And yeah, there are a few sports fans that may give you a hard time, but people are going about their lives, and you're still incredibly blessed to be playing a game for a living. And and it goes so fast, and is even the worst of it is still incredible, right? And that's what I sort of learned, that I've been doing some speaking, since then. I started to speak, and one thing that really amazes me is how much baseball means to people. You know, you don't appreciate it when you're playing. Like you talked about, Ollie, it's a very insulated world, right? You protect yourself when you're there. You go from the stadium to the bus to the hotel, and you come back, and you don't spread out so much. You protect yourself a lot. But when you're retired, you've got to face the world, and traveling to Iowa or some remote place like Nebraska, Omaha, some place like that. But you find out how much people watch every team. They know every player. They don't care if you're 2-18. They don't care if you're 18-2. They just love the game, and they want to talk about the game, and they love the people who play the game. If you try to be a decent person.
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah, and easy on Nebraska and Iowa,
and Minnesota's right there. So I saw you headed that route, and I was like,
nailed all of us. But I mean, he's from Michigan, so I know he means it in the best possible way. Having been with you out in Southern California for about 20 years, amazing man, amazing family. I heard through at least from some people that had you as their speaker, that you are just unbelievable. And so congratulations on that. What else you got going on, Jim?
Oh, thanks, Oli. It's been kind of quiet, to be honest, with COVID. My traveling and speaking has obviously not been as busy as before. Hopefully that's kind of coming back a little bit. But I have two daughters, as you know, Maddie and Ella. Maddie, they both went to the University of Michigan, which I've been incredibly proud of. And they both competed. One played volleyball, the other one played water polo. And so, we've been wrapped up in that. We spent a lot of time at home during the pandemic. Try to mix in a few golf games with all the old shysters out here at the Big Canyon Country Club, where we had some fun matches. Team play is going on right now, Oli. It always brings back memories of you and I trying to take people down.
Oh yeah.
I'm very fortunate. Everything's good. I went back to Michigan, saw my parents, and I count my blessings every day.
Now you owned John Lieber as a hitter. People keep saying that and tell me to ask you about it. What would a plate appearance for Jim Abbott have looked like against Mr. Gregg Olson?
Oh, geez. I mean, that curveball, I'd have been, I might have cried or soiled my pants or something. I don't even know. I mean,
Can you
it's
strike
hard
out
to
on 2
describe.
pitches?
And I say this all the time because Gregg has a lot of friends back here, and we talk about his name comes up often, especially on the 9th hole when we start looking at all those trees over there on the right, what we used to call Olsen Woods. But I see this. I tell those guys all the time. It's hard to describe how good Ole was. It really, that curveball was just unbelievable, and it's hard to describe how hard it is to hit. I mean, Greg Maddox made me look like a fool. He threw an 85-mile-an-hour fastball down the plate. I took it, and I said, well, I could hit that, right? Throw that one again. And then he threw it, what looked like was that same pitch, like same arm slot, same everything. I said, oh, here it comes, a little sinker. And I swung and missed it by a little sinker. And then he threw me a changeup that I thought was the same pitch, and I missed that by 2 feet. And so against Ole, I would have just quit.
So you were 2 for 21, all in the same year, 99?
Well, I only played in the National League for, the Brewers for that time. But 2 hits. Both off Lieber, one in Milwaukee and one in Chicago, which was so fun to play in Wrigley Field and get a base hit.
I heard you had a triple in spring training, though.
Off Rick Russell. Yeah, he dropped one down, laid the head down, hit way over Willie McGee's head.
That's hard to do. He's fast.
Yeah, he's really fast. And that, but with my speed, it was easy to get to third.
There you go.
Stand-up triple, by the way. Didn't even slide.
Did Willie fall over or something? We need more context here.
Oh, that's so good.
Oh, man. Well, we can catch some of these Gregg Olson highlights on YouTube. He's got some curveballs on there that'll make your jaw drop. You can also check out That 90s Baseball Pod on YouTube. This video here is on there. You're either watching it now live, or hopefully if you're listening to us in your car, you'll check us out on YouTube on Access Twins. But man, Jim, thank you so much for carving out the time for us today.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Wow. Brandon, Ole, thank you guys. Greg's one of my favorite teammates ever, and has been a great friend, and love his family. And it's been an honor to join you guys and toss around some 90s names.
Yeah. That's favorite thing for me to do, and you guys make it so easy. So you can follow him,
back, brother. Anytime you're available, we'd love to have you back.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the best in the game, and I will say that the one night in Baltimore, since you threw me such a high praise, the one night in Baltimore, I think the first time we saw you in '89, we made a run at running out of bats. You were running cutters in on righties, and they'd never seen it, and it was just. The trash cans were full all over the place of just shredded lumber. I'm just sitting there going, dude, you got to look for, no. And it was like, look for the cutter. And I was like, I am. It's still running up my hands. You wiped us out the first time I think we saw you in Baltimore, but it was.
Oh, man. Well, thank you, Ole. Oh, can I show you guys something more real quick?
Yes,
hold on.
Please do. I was going to say, Ole, it's easy for you to say Mr. Look for the curveball too. So, it's
this is one of those where you're just sitting there and you're watching it from the side going,
how?
Yeah.
Uh-oh, he's got some lumber.
This is my signed Gregg Olson bat that I keep with my collection over there. I've got a few: Robin Ventura, Paul Molitor, and Gregg Olson. I'm not exactly, I know he has a home run in his career. Do you have one or two? How many did you hit?
I just got one hit, one home run. That was it.
Wow.
So I have Ole, this is my office where I come out every day and work out and watch TV. And so I have my memento of you. And, Gregg Olson, here's the ultimate compliment in baseball. Brian Downing, maybe an 80s name, was one of the toughest teammates I ever had, and he was not one to pass out compliments. He really, truly, he was great, but he was quiet. He was businesslike, and Gregg struck him out on a curveball, and he came back to the dugout, and he had this look in his eyes, and he said, "That's legit. That's a legit right there." and that from him. He's one of those guys who didn't give credit to anybody. But anyway, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Well, I wish I would have been prepared. I got a Gregg autographed baseball card in the mail this week. the old stadium club with the funny colors on the bottom. We'll show that next week. Again, thank you so much to Jim. You can follow him on Twitter at @JAbbottUM. He's Gregg Olson at Gregg Olson 30. I'm Brandon Warren saying thank you so much for checking out that 90s baseball pod powered by Access Twins, and we'll catch you next week. Peace.
Peace.
See you guys. Thanks.